Prime Minister Narendra Modi is chairing a crucial meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security as India closely tracks the rapidly evolving situation in West Asia. This is not just another review meeting. This meeting is to assess the impact of war on India's energy lifeline, critical supply chains and overall economic stability, from fuel to fertilizers, from trade routes to inflation risks. The government is preparing for every possible ripple effect of a conflict that threatens to disrupt normal life. The government is reviewing fuel availability, assessing risks to fertilizer import ahead of crucial Kharif season, and identifying alternate sourcing strategies. There is also a deep dive into global supply chains. Key sectors like pharmaceuticals, chemicals and petrochemicals are under watch, with contingency plans being drawn up. And perhaps most importantly, the government is evaluating inflation risk, because any sustained disruption could hit household budgets across the country. Now let's break down what this crisis means for you and me. Starting with LPG, India remains heavily dependent on imports, and the disruption in supply chains and spike in global prices has increased the subsidy burden and impacted retail prices. Jet fuel has emerged as a major flashpoint. Aviation turbine fuel prices have been hiked by around 8.5% in India, tracking a sharp surge in global crude amid the West Asia crisis. While this would normally trigger a spike in airfares, the government has stepped in to stagger the increase, limiting the immediate impact on domestic travellers, even as international routes face the full brunt of rising costs. ATF prices, which form nearly 40% of airlines' operating expenses, have seen a steep jump globally, with crude hovering above $100 per barrel. Domestic airlines are currently absorbing part of the shock, but longer flight routes, higher fuel burn and a weak rupee are adding to the pressure, meaning fare hikes could just be a matter of time. And then comes petrol and diesel, the most, I would say, politically sensitive issue of all. While oil companies may try to cushion the blow for now, sustained high crude prices will inevitably feed into inflation across sectors. That is exactly why the government is acting early to manage shock before it hits the ground.
जानते हैं कि हमारी क्रूड इन्वेंट्री सफिशिएंट है और भारत सरकार ने अगले 2 महीने के लिए सफिशिएंट क्रूड के लिए अरेंजमेंट किया हुआ है। हमारी रिफाइनरीज उच्चतम स्तर पर चल रही हैं। रिटेल आउटलेट्स पर कोई ड्राई आउट रिपोर्टेड नहीं है। इस संबंध में मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगी कि लगभग 2 महीने पहले जो ब्रेंट $70 पर बैरल की रेंज में चल रहा था, वो आज $100 के ऊपर पहुंच चुका है। इसके बावजूद घरेलू उपभोक्ताओं के लिए पेट्रोल, डीजल की दरों में कोई वृद्धि नहीं की गई है। 6 अप्रैल 2022 से पेट्रोल और डीजल का दाम नहीं बढ़ाया गया है और मार्च 2024 में पेट्रोल और डीजल का दाम 2 रुपये कम किया गया था, जो अभी भी बरकरार है। घरेलू उपभोक्ताओं को इंटरनेशनल जो वॉलेटिलिटी है प्राइसेस में, उससे बचाने के लिए आप जानते हैं भारत सरकार ने एक्साइज ड्यूटी को कम किया ताकि घरेलू उपभोक्ताओं को बचाया जा सके और प्राइस में कोई भी वृद्धि न हो।
The Indian aviation industry has welcomed this important decision and strategic decision by the Government of India to implement this limited increase of 25% on aviation turbine fuel prices for domestic scheduled carriers on domestic routes. This measure provides critical relief as global energy markets face unprecedented surges due to the disruptions in West Asia. This intervention will ensure that domestic operational costs of Indian carriers remain manageable. For the Indian carriers, where fuel typically accounts for around 40% of total operating expenses, this move prevents a potential industry-wide crisis.
This isn't the first time that the government has huddled over this crisis. On March 22nd, a detailed CCS review had already taken place. The government assessed then the availability of essential commodities, food, fuel and fertilizers, and evaluated preparedness for upcoming agriculture season. Coal stocks at power plants were reviewed to ensure uninterrupted electricity supply, while alternative import sources were explored across key sectors. Most importantly, the government adopted a whole of government approach, bringing multiple ministries together to respond in a coordinated and proactive manner. Bottom line is that India is not reacting late, it is preparing early on this issue. I am joined by Senior Editor Business Shweta Kothari and Editor Input Brijesh Pandey. Thank you both of you for joining me. Let me straight away go to Shweta first. Shweta, how is India preparing to mitigate India's fuel crisis?
Well, Karthikeya, India has been preparing for a while. We've heard from prime ministers, we've heard from the intergovernmental panels, the secretaries over the course of last many weeks talking about India's preparedness on multiple aspects. But I'll touch on three aspects today to be particular. One is the cooking fuel, and that is your LPG, both commercial as well as domestic LPG. Now, domestic LPG prices have remained constant, although commercial LPG is now slightly more expensive, about 195 rupees, and that has a direct impact on restaurants, on dhabas and eateries. So any place that buys commercial LPG is likely to feel the pressure. We'll talk a lot more about what it means for consumers in just a short while, but let me also take you through the second aspect that affects all of us, and that is the fuel that we use on a daily basis, the petrol and diesel prices. And albeit there's been a substantial hike on global crude oil, India hasn't really passed on, the OMCs in India haven't really passed it on to the consumer. So apart from premium oil, which is about 11 rupees more expensive today as opposed to pre-war levels, largely petrol and diesel prices have remained same. So oil marketing companies including IOCL, BPCL, HPCL have ensured that they do not pass on those rise in prices to domestic retailers, to consumers like you and me. And finally, ATF. This is where flying comes in, airline turbine fuel, which means that the prices of tickets, as in when you fly, are also likely to go up, as the government has upped and hiked ATF prices by about 8.5%. They can only go up by 25%. That's the ceiling government has kept. And the government has also come out today saying that although ATF prices worldwide have gone up 100%, we are only keeping a ceiling at 25%, which means flying is also expected to get more expensive. And many airlines have already started, pushing the prices up in the last couple of weeks, and that's likely to go up further. So on those all three aspects, government has made sure categorically that retail customers, that common man does not have to bear the brunt. Okay. So be it by the way of our LPG cylinders, which are at the same price as they were about a month ago or 2 months ago, as well as our crude oil prices, barring private retailers, and I'm specifically talking about Naira Energy, which is a private retailer, operates about 7,000 fuel stations in India. 90% of all the petrol pumps are still giving petrol and diesel at the same price. Government is making it clear, we have the cheapest cost of energy in this country, and we're doing our best to ensure that the needs of Indians are met.
Okay, Brijesh, how has the government dealt with this issue politically? Your assessment?
Well, I think, elections are around the corner. So there are many who believe that, the government is forced to make sure that the prices of important things like, petrol, diesel and other commodities does not increase beyond a point. Otherwise, it can have a cascading and a politically disastrous outcome for the government. But the fact of the matter is that, the government is, one of the good things which they have done is that, post last CCS, an interministerial briefing has been done, which is done every 24 hours. And, with that, the government has been able to deal with the most important component, which is rumor mongering. So they have been able to provide a real-time assessment of where the government stands, where the this monstrous war which is happening, where exactly does the world need stand vis-a-vis Indian demand. And third thing is, I think, despite the claims of the government, the situation on the ground is getting serious by the day. And, though the government is claiming that, the LPG cylinders and all are in adequate supply, but if you go to the ground, the situation is not all that honky-dory as the government is claiming. So government is right now doing a tightrope walk. But Karthikeya, I think my biggest worry is that if this crisis continues for another couple of weeks, then even despite the best of intentions or best of pressure, the situation is bound to go awry. And I think this is the biggest worry which the government of India is staring at right now.
Okay. Shweta, one thing is price going up, but another is breaking down of supply chains and important products going off the shelf. Can you shed light on what will be India's challenge in context of unavailability of certain items, if I may say so.
Challenge for that matter, Kartikeya, and the government has acknowledged it. Prime Minister has acknowledged it in the past 1 week. He's talked about how we are living in very uncertain times, and which essentially means inflation is going to go up, supply chains are breaking with each passing day, and we are still staring at an uncertain future. So as far as goods and essential items is concerned, let me take off from where I left as far as commercial petrol and diesel prices is concerned. As a result of commercial fuel getting more expensive, all our logistics supply chain get more expensive. So vegetable prices, fruits prices, prices of daily goods and essentials will get expensive because they have to be transported from one place to the other. So that's a direct impact we are looking at as far as goods is concerned. Secondly, everything that relies on crude, including plastic, polythenes, bottles, are getting more expensive. In fact, reports are suggesting that retailers are already selling things like, your daily bottles, your plastic cutlery, and in fact your buckets at a more expensive rate. So that has already started percolating down to people. So that's the secondary thing. The third, of course, is farm related goods, as well as fertilizers, which also depend on crude oil and are as a result of tertiary crude oil processing. They are also expected to get more expensive. And finally, I have to also paint a picture when it comes to some items that we use on daily basis, including your paints, your agrochemicals, soap, detergent. All of these are also a byproduct of crude refining. So if we have lesser crude, we are refining lesser crude, which means some of these byproducts as a result of crude refining are also likely to get more expensive. Now on ground, as Brijesh pointed out, we are looking at some sort of panic. Although the government is coming out saying rumor mongering is not helpful, you should not panic, but some daily use items are getting more expensive. Not things that are going to have a dramatic impact on us, maybe a 10 rupee hike there, 10 rupee hike here, that we are seeing. But before I come back to you, also important to point out, as a result of commercial LPG getting more expensive,
Okay.
the thalis are getting more expensive. And many reports on ground that we are hearing suggest that daily eateries, daily items that we consume at a dhaba, at a restaurant, is getting more expensive. PG, people who are living outside of their homes, people who are living in tier 2, tier 3 cities are also likely to feel pain, because food and living for them, the cost of living for them is also likely to be higher as a result of supply chains breaking down. So we are seeing a direct impact. It's not a dramatic impact just as yet, because government is trying to cushion the blow. But it's about, it's a matter of time. If the war continues, we may be able to see the percolated impact of it in just a matter of couple of weeks from now.
India will need to brace up for the impact, because even if there's a ceasefire tomorrow, the impact will be long felt, not next month, next to next month. But I think the entire year, the impact of this war will be felt globally. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Brijesh, for joining me.